Pat said about 4 generations. I know in 1958 I saw an article. Mr. Rogers was very happy to sell the land to the developers rather than farming the land. So I've gone through the process, at least 2 generations with the Fats family, but that's a very personal opinion, nothing to do with the development. Also, I found the original planner's report of April 14th and 2 supplemental reports from planning extremely disappointing, especially given that on August 10th, every council member commented about the lack of sufficient public amenity. And the director of engineering said, and I quote, "It may be beneficial to secure a bicycle right-of-way for future use for Douglas local connector." So let us look at this journey over the past 4 years. And I must say, I'm not taking any pleasure in saying all these things, but these are the facts here. 4 years of journey here. The development proposal was first presented to us on November 24th, 2011. That development proposal was very preliminary and conceptual. It contained 3 concepts. A, food processing plant and townhomes. B, 3 condo buildings and townhomes, density 13 units per acre. C, single family lots and townhomes, density 8 units per acre. At that meeting of November 24th, 2011, we were also told that the planning department was reluctant to accept industrial land use in that location because of the primary residential area around, and wanted the applicant to talk to the community. We accepted the food processing plant for simply 3 reasons. Number 1, recognition of the historical presence of the food processing plant. Number 2, our presumption, rightly or wrongly, that the plant supports local growers and producers. And number 3, plant provides about 100 jobs to local citizens who live within 3 kilometers. Following this first meeting, we asked proponents, copy to the planner, to consider putting some portion of the land for food production, such as greenhouse, etc. More disappointingly, we found that 80% of food processed there comes from California. Only 20% comes from the local growers. Also importantly, almost 60% is used as warehousing and distribution, and about 40% is processed and supplied to various local users, such as the ferry and some of the stores, hospitals. When I studied the current zoning map, I found that only about 12% to 15% of the land is currently M5 zoned. That is a current food producing plant. And currently this food producing plant is grossly non-compliant and is primarily in A1 zone. We were really caught into moral and socio-economic dilemma about keeping 100 jobs for people, and as a result, economic benefit to many families. And I think it was said $3.2 million in the payroll, which works out to be about $32,000 per year per employee if you take 100 employees. So I was caught between this economic, social economic, plus the land use, etc. I felt food processing plant can be supported even though many residents living on Douglas and around plant on Dieppe complained to me about truck and traffic noise and the sidewalk, lack of sidewalk, etc. Especially early in the morning, the truck and traffic noise did disturb them. It should be noted that the residents on Cameo and Kincaid are not much impacted by the truck traffic noise. And I would not be surprised if they do not object to the proposed development. If we look at the, now I'm going on to the site analysis a little bit. If we look at the total land area, the site is roughly, as you can see right there in the picture, the site is roughly 7.3 acres or 3.13 hectare, primarily A1 zone, out of which 1.7 acre or 0.7 hectare is under the transmission line. The transmission line is shown there. So effectively only 78 or 6.2 acres is buildable. But conventionally, density is calculated based on the total area. And in general, the land under the transmission line can be used for roadways, parking, etc. The first open house was organized by the proponents on April 17th and 18th, 2012. So 5 months after our first meeting. It proposed a food processing plant, 27,093 square foot, and I've got a drawing for that. 29 two-story townhomes, 1,200 to 1,500 square feet, with 2 or 3 bedrooms, and 8 single-family lots, and 1 duplex lot along Douglas on the south side of the transmission line. At this open house, I saw the site plan and realized that the applicant can have RS6 lot rather than RS4 lot on the northeast corner of the site. The northeast corner of the site would be where, if I can show you this, right there. That's the northeast corner of the site. I mentioned that to Mr. Fatt and suggest that RS6 lot would be more valuable than RS4 lot. Mr. Ian Fatt quickly accepted this suggestion, and the next version of the site used 2 RS6 lots with a shared entrance. That is, council member, is an increase of about $100,000 in the development value. We had a second association meeting on May 31st, 2012 with the proponents to review and discuss the proposal based on the comments received from the residents who attended the first open house. However, during that time, erroneously, we thought there was still an opportunity to consider some food production possibility. We wrote to the proponents accordingly with a copy to the planner. We thought some area of that land could be used for food production, even if it's a greenhouse. On July 6, 2012, we were advised that Ms. Heidelbrand, the consultant working so far on the project, has left the firm of HB Lanark. And therefore now we were looking at the prospect of working with a new consultant. It seemed all the previous dealings and correspondence went wayside. All the information we had received and input we had provided was unfortunately lost. Mr. Ian Fatt requested a meeting on October 10th, now this is 10th, 2012. At that meeting, Mr. Peter DeHoog, the new consultant, was introduced to us. Between October 10th, 2012 and January 17th, 2013, almost a year later from the first meeting, we got quite a bit of historical information on the land. Also, we were given the reasons why it was not economical to grow anything there, and that the land has never been used for food production, only hay is produced there. That was the information we got. So that closed the door for having any food production on that about 8 acres of land. On December 18th, there was a second open house under the design leadership of now Mr. Peter DeHoog. The proposal had expanded to 33 homes, from 29 to 33 homes, 6 two-level and 27 three-level. The proposed heights of 6 two-level townhomes were within 7.5 meters, but the heights of 27 three-level townhomes were 9.5 meter, which is 2 meter variance. 2 townhome units were proposed to have basic adaptable housing features. The front setback was 4 meter, while 7.5 meter was required. There were also 9 single-family lots. We can see that the density had increased, units were compressed, gross floor area of the industrial building was increased to 39,000 square feet. The land and the development value was maximized. Unfortunately, now we can see why the original consultant, Ms. Heidelbrand, and her firm HB Lanark were gone or replaced. I think some aggressive planning and maximization of the land value was at play here, unfortunately. At the same time, the public community was shrinking. Let me explain that. We had requested Mr. Fatt to consider undertaking a feasibility study to restore Gabo Creek. On December 20th, 2012, 2 days after the referenced open house, Mr. Harold Wolf and I were invited to a meeting. We met with Mr. Ian Fatt and his consultant, Mr. Scott Murdoch. We talked for about an hour and a half and found out a few days later that for a variety of reasons they would not act on that initiative. Also, there was another public community proposal talked about. That proposal was to clean up the Douglas Street side of the highway berm fronting the property. Again, the proposal seemed to be off the table. It was only after the first committee of the whole meeting on May 11th, the applicant reluctantly, I believe, agreed to a 12,000 contribution with several conditions to be managed by the District of Saanich. So there is $12,500 dollars for Gabo Creek. On February 22nd, 2013, we received a community referral from the planning department. The industrial buildings seemed to be bigger in area, but the proposed height was still within the required 10 meter. However, the setback was only 3 meter instead of required 7.5 meter. The front setback was generous for this industrial building because I suspect more space was needed for trucks to turn in and out from the loading and unloading area of the Douglas Street. The number of townhomes remained 33, but only 4 units instead of 6 units were 2-story. So the 3-story were going up, 2-story were coming down, and I believe the one on Dieppe, those 4 units, I think they are perhaps the 4-story. I can be corrected there, but these 4 units, I think they are 2-story, if I'm not mistaken. Generally, the proposed heights were now 9.4 meter to now 11.4 meter against the permitted height of 7.5 meter. There were 9 single-family lots, 3 RS6 and 6 RS4. The road dedication along Dieppe Road seemed to reduce the setback for 4 townhomes along Dieppe Road from 4 meter to 2.8, and I think that was alluded to by Mr. Peter D. Hughes. This is very close to the road. I think the frontage is about from 4 meter to 2.8 meter to accommodate a sidewalk. So the people would be having a sidewalk as you open the door. See people walking the sidewalk. That seemed unfair, at least to me. Effectively, the applicant is not dedicating any land. The sidewalk strip is fully compensated by reduction in the setback, locating 4 townhomes closer to Dieppe Road. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit upset, but yeah, it is a bit disappointing and upset, excuse me. We responded to the planner on the development on March 17th and on the traffic study on April the 3rd, 2013. On Thursday, October 3rd, we received a revised referral plan, or revised referral from the planning department. We sent the same community response as the previous one. On April 22nd, 2014, we were advised that Ms. Sherry Holmes Salzman was going on a maternity leave, and the file has been passed on to Mr. Neil Finlow. Once again, we now face the prospect of dealing with a new planner. I'm sorry, I need to finish the...
I'm just going to interrupt you just for a moment, Mr. Charania. Just for the audience's understanding, there are no time limits on public hearing, provided new information is being added. And even though you're doing a lengthy chronology, I consider as a chair that you are adding new information with each chronological addition.
Really soon, sir. Thank you. On March 31st, there was a final open house. To the best of my knowledge, only 15 people attended that open house. I was stopped outside by two of the residents. They expressed their concerns regarding traffic and truck noise, especially during early mornings. The planner's report dated April 14th was sent to us on Thursday. I'm going to skip that paragraph. Anyway, let's look at the planner's report on the 14th. And as I said, I'm very disappointed with the report because I believe it's heavily slanted in favor of the development. It does not critically and carefully analyze many key issues, and I'll give you some examples if you may want to make a note. On page 1, it states that the streamside development permit will be required, but does not comment on the merits or demerits of the area and the permit. The question is, if that due diligence is required, why it's not done before the council makes a decision on the application. On page 2 it says, or it states the size of the parcel, but neglects to state that 22% of the site is under high voltage transmission line and is not buildable. I'm just going to skip some of these things here. On page 4, under the neighborhood context, the planner attempts to connect Royal Oak Industrial Park across the highway with our North Quadra Community Park neighborhood. I believe it is a huge stretch. That industrial park has absolutely nothing to do with North Quadra area. However, on page 6 in paragraph 4, it correctly acknowledges that the site is not strictly in accordance with the future land use vision of the local area plan. So the plan itself is an anomaly accepted by the community and by the planner. And we have no problem about the plant itself. Currently there is a food production on the site, but there is no food production on the site. The poultry production was stopped 14 years ago. Mr. Infat said that the soil conditions on the site are such that they cannot grow anything except hay. I can go on a little bit on this one. Height of the industrial building, which was supposed to be 10 meter, now it's 12 meter, plus barrier to protect or hide the mechanical units up on the top. On page, the report talks about the concrete sound barrier on the north and the east side. And on Monday of 31st May, when I examined the drawings, I was not satisfied that that will do the trick for sound attenuation. Under the mobility on page 14, I'm not going to go into the traffic report. You already heard enough about the traffic report. I think the traffic report is flawed. The traffic report does not take into account the home-based businesses, daycare, multifamily occupancy, secondary suites, and up to 4 adults ownership. The big disappointment was the engineering not asking for an additional minimum 3 meter right of way for the bicycle lane. I'm going to skip some of these things here. On May 11th, 2015, I stood here and I urged committee of the whole to pause, send the proposal back to the drawing board. I asked to myself, do we need redevelopment there? Answer was yes. Do we need more housing? Answer was yes. Therefore I gave you recommendation as follows. And I said that the current proposal should be amended so that there are less variances, if possible no variances on the height and setback. The variances should be critically reviewed, and as a result, the housing will have larger space and the density will reduce. Do we need food processing plant there? Yes. There are 100 jobs at stake. The current road right-of-way or sidewalk should not be at the expense of the variance. That's not a proper road dedication or the sidewalk dedication when you take it away from the people's frontage. That's wrong. That's unfair, unreasonable. Additional right-of-way on Douglas and Dieppe should be required to improve sight distance and future bicycle lanes on Douglas and Dieppe. Douglas and Dieppe is very dangerous. I don't even go for a walk now. We need to consider a feasibility to restore Gabo Creek. Of course, that's been addressed. The highway berm fronting the property should be cleaned up. Well, I'll leave that later on. And the amenity of 122,500, according to my calculation, amounted to about 0.5% of the total development, which I thought was grossly inadequate. And I questioned the council, what happened to that 5% land dedication which council was obligated to acquire under the local government guidelines. In the second committee of the whole meeting on August 10th, I said I remained disappointed with the proposal and the planner's report. I summarized my concerns as follows. Lack of right-of-way for future bicycle lanes, too many heights and siding variances, and most importantly, grossly inadequate public amenity. On August 10th, I'm coming to new information, sir. Interesting. On August 10th, I elaborated to demonstrate how inadequate the community amenity contribution was for this substantial development. I listed 6 examples in our area, starting from Bernard Park all the way to a condominium where we got off-site sidewalk on Morris Drive. In many other areas in Saanich, the previous councils have managed to do exactly the same. They have obtained adequate community benefit. For example, they should interest Councillor Brownoff and maybe Councillor Ruggelin. I stood here, I believe in 1992, maybe 1993. Councillor Brownoff was one of the newly elected councillors. Mr. Murray Cole was the mayor, and Mr. Merv Marson brought an application to rezone the Chatterton property to an office park. We, North Quadra and Dara, raised an issue of Ritech Bog dedication and urged the council of the day that this application for the office park should not be acted upon until the Ritech Bog is dedicated to Saanich. I've never seen the mayor working so hard, so quick. Council supported that. Mayor Murray Cole quickly got a dedication from the Guinness family in about 3 weeks, and the office park application moved forward. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Brown. During the last committee of the whole meeting on August 10th, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Derman very eloquently mentioned in their summation that there are project requirements and there are community amenity contributions. They are different. This project lacks the community amenity contribution. We have always recognized the fact that there are 3 components to a project. Number 1, the project requirements such as the roads, services, sidewalks, stormwater management, etc. Those are the project. Number two, there are private amenities such as energy-saving features, community gardens, transit passes, trees and other beautification features which developers use in marketing their projects. And number three, there are community amenity contributions for the benefit of the existing community and existing population. 2 or 3 weeks later, thanks to Councillor Bronoff again, Councillor Bronoff brought a letter to Council to create a policy around the community amenity contribution. I researched this issue and studied the provincial guidelines published in March 2014. I urge everyone here, including the staff members, to study the provincial guideline in detail. It talks extensively about balancing the need of the existing population and the change in the land use, rezoning, and higher density of the new development. It talks about sections 933, 937.3, 938, 939, 941, and 945 of the Local Government Act. One of the sections is section 941 suggests up to 5% of land dedication for park or cash in lieu of. The guide also suggests amenity contribution going towards school sites, recreational facility, fire hall, etc., depending upon the need and the nature of the existing community. So let us look at this increase of 10,000 from 158.5 to 168.5 after August 10th meeting. I'm not sure what you think, but I'm extremely disappointed. Given the comments from every council member suggesting significant increase in the community contribution, this meager increase, I believe, is unacceptable. I'm also dumbfounded and very disappointed that the staff would entertain such a feeble response from the applicant. Now let us look at the total contribution of $168,500. Notwithstanding Mr. Ian Fatt quickly accepted my suggestion of RS6 lots creating additional $100,000 value, he has grossly failed to make community contribution proportional to the value estimated to be well over 25 million. Let us look at this 168,500 closely. The project has proposed 9 single-family lots, 3 RS6, 6 RS4. According to a Local Government Act and the Community Contribution Guideline, the Council has an obligation, and I repeat, the Council has an obligation, I believe, to require up to 5% of the land, and that value is about half a single family lot. That is 168,500. It seems that the rest of the development is a free ride with no community contribution. In my view, that is unreasonable, and it should be unacceptable to you. If you look at the 5% of the whole site, you get an entirely different picture. The site is 3.9 acres, 5% of the site is about 17,000 square feet. And being an engineer, I can calculate some of those numbers fairly quickly, which is equal to 3 lots. The unserviced value of these 3 lots would be 600,000, and the serviced lot would be about 900,000. If you take a modest 3% community contribution on the value of the whole development, the value of community contribution would be 750,000. In addition, there is higher density proposed, and therefore there should be higher contribution. You're not selling the density, you're granting the density, and you're expecting equivalent, economic equivalent contribution to the existing population, existing community. Just for your information, maybe of interest to some council members. 15, 20 years ago, I had proposed the concept of economic equivalency. So whenever there's a land rezoned and densified, there is a value which is an increase in the value of the land. So that value should be somewhat, in some proportion, should be shared with the existing community, population, and the need of the existing community. I thought that was the basic theme behind this balance between the new development and the community need. Many other developers have made significant contributions for getting rezoning at higher density. SIDC, land development, as we just went through first application. Hutchison's land development and Rainbow Hill development are good examples in our North Corridor. So where do we go from here? I urge Council to reject or table the current development proposal and request the applicant to make adjustments to the proposal as follows. I'm almost there. Number 1, make a provision for bicycle lane along Douglas and Deer. Mr. Chair and councillors, it will be very expensive or maybe impossible to acquire this right-of-way 10 or 20 years from now. And if you are really serious about the alternate mode of transportation, you will realize that cycling and walking will play an important role